We'll try again. It says we are live.
Kate, just wondering if you're watching, would you be able to confirm that that's the case?
Yes, that would be helpful.
It is looking more hopeful at the moment from the my looking at the live stream.
I've just seen a thumbs up from Kate.
Excellent. All right, there we are. That's great.
Thank you for that.
Thanks. Apologies for interrupting your flow, Andrew.
No.
Not to worry.
Andrew, if you could continue, thank you.
The agent has also submitted in support of the application several different appeals which relate to Gypsy and Traveller proposals. These have been noted by officers, but none of the appeals relate to proposals within a national park area. The main issues are whether the need for the additional traveller caravan site provision in the area and if circumstances of the applicant outweigh any harm caused to the character and appearance of the national park. The Pembrokeshire Gypsy Traveller Accommodation Assessment 2019 identified an immediate need for 9 pitches by the end of 2024, which have not been met, and there is remaining an unmet need for 25 pitches over the period of 2025 to 2033. The Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment 2019 did not identify a need for pitches in the National Park, and Pembrokeshire County Council is making provision for an additional 55 pitches in its LDP2, which is due to be submitted for examination in June 2025 and for adoption in May 2026. The applicant has existing accommodation and is not currently homeless. However, the agent has submitted additional information to indicate that the applicant, whilst not in housing need, there are other related issues with his current home in respect of the property is rented accommodation, the rented accommodation is currently in a poor condition, and it is also bricks and mortar, which goes against the family living culture and does not meet their need to live in a caravan. Moderate weight has therefore been given in the report to the existing level of outstanding unmet need for Gypsy Traveller accommodation in Pembrokeshire. That level of need should be weighed against the likely impacts of the development on the national park landscape and habitat in this area. The proposed location of the site is within the Landscape Character Area 1, which has been assessed as having no further capacity to accommodate new caravan development, and that is as set out in the Caravan, Camping and Chalet Supplementary Planning Guidance adopted in May 2021. Whilst the proposal involves 1 proposed static caravan, 1 touring caravan and an associated utility room, all for residential use, officers consider that further caravan development in this LCA of any type would exceed landscape capacity. This would contribute to a cumulative adverse impact within the landscape character area. The agent questions this approach and indicates that this landscape assessment for caravans is clearly for tourism developments within the national park and not for Gypsy and Traveller pitches. Officers consider that the landscape assessment was undertaken in respect of the landscape capacity to accommodate static and touring caravans within set areas inside of the national park. This assessment did not make any concessions for the particular use of caravans in question and just assessed the ability for each area to accommodate additional caravans. This area is at capacity because cumulatively the existing sites are having an adverse impact on the landscape character. The gaps between developments in places, especially in the southwest, are narrow and needed to be retained to maintain a sense of rural character. As such, officers would come to the same conclusion if the proposal was for another caravan development. There has also been significant site clearance undertaken prior to the submission of the application, and the impact on the landscape, biodiversity and ecosystem resilience has been assessed as negative, with uncertainty over the definitive impact due to the lack of baseline assessment prior to the clearance. The authority has served an enforcement notice on the site, which requires it to return to its previous condition. The agent has emailed to question the term significant used within the officer's report and questions the evidence to justify that term being used. And as part of this, I've put some slides together which will help quantify the level of site clearance undertaken recently on the application site and adjoining land within the same ownership, and to try and confirm why this terminology was used in describing the level of site clearance within this area. So the report before members recommends refusal of the application on the basis of landscape impact and potential harm through the loss of habitat's inadequate green infrastructure provision. The lack of wider landscape capacity to accommodate further caravan development in this landscape character area is also constitutes a reason for refusal. As such, the report before members on pages 25 to 49 includes the relevant information to consider the application, and therefore the recommendation to members on page 48 is for refusal, subject to the two reasons set out on pages 48 and 49. If members just bear with me, I will just go through my visual presentation now. So as you can see on the screen, these are the main issues that have been considered as part of the application. Policy 53 is the actual relevant planning policy within our LDP2, which relates to Gypsy Traveller and Show People sites. And as you can see, as part of this this policy, there are certain criteria which need to be met. And you will note that there is A to F, and each one has an and after it, not an or. So all of these need to be met for the authority to be able to support a site. The application site is outlined in red just for location purposes. You can see here, this is the site plan and block plans of the existing site and the adjacent land in the same ownership outlined in blue, and you get a sense of location here where you can see the adjacent development within the inclined way, and obviously other residential properties to the south of the site, which is just a zoomed up version of what you've just seen. And then we come into the proposed plans as submitted. The agent has submitted an additional plan to this with additional landscaping on, but I failed to clarify if that was to supersede this plan. So if the agent confirms that, I can drag that up onto the screen and show members that once the agent is obviously given his presentation. In the bottom of the corner here, you can see an extract from the TPO information map that the agent submitted, and I will show that in more detail on another slide. As you can see here, the agent is proposing some additional mitigation, and that is highlighted here. Within the site then, most members will know the site obviously from attending, but within the site, this is the Moreton Lane that comes through, and that is also a public right of way, and it extends up along that route. The gates into the site are here, so there is some space to pull off the lane before opening the gates. The purple denotes the static caravan proposed, which is currently in this location on site. The light blue here denotes the actual utility stroke playroom, and there is a temporary shed on site at present in this location. And then the pinkish rectangle you can see there proposes the location of a touring caravan. Within the site then there is obviously an existing tree, as you will see from my photos, and the remnants of some historic development that was on the site. And that is just a zoomed up version of what I've just indicated. Bounding the site, more often than not, there is a close border timber fence, and you will see that as part of the photos I show you. This is the proposed day stroke utility room, which is a permanent structure on site, and then obviously the other two structures are a static caravan and a touring caravan. So this is the static caravan layout and the elevations. We don't have any details for the touring caravan for obvious reasons. As part of the application process, we did go to site and we did fly a drone to try and get some images to help us consider the application. So then the following 3 photos are drone footage. So you can see the application site here. So this is Moreton Lane that comes up around here and continues on. This is the area that I described as the polling area before the gates into the site. And then obviously you can see the adjacent land in the same ownership, which has also been fenced, which you can clearly see the fencing. And the fence that fronts Moreton Lane is a mix of close boarded and open aspect. And then at the bottom of your screen, you will see the entrance into the Welsh Water Treatment Works. And then on the right of your screen, you can see part of the existing development, which forms part of the Incline Way. So that's just a better view of the adjacent development with the site in the bottom left-hand corner. And again, neighbouring properties to the south of the development with the water treatment works, and then obviously a further development to the west. This slide has been given to show you the application site and its proximity to the development boundary for Saundersfoot, but also to show you how the site sort of splits the actual land in between Bonville's Court Country Park and Grifson Caravan and Tent Park. Again, the application site, this is just the base layer for Ordnance Survey, just showing you the context of the site in relation to existing development. We've tried to show you what the site looked like historically. So what we've got here on the left hand side is 2 images from Google Earth. One is dated 2021, and you can see that it looks like the site is quite well developed in relation to soft landscaping. And then obviously the aerial at the bottom is quite dark, and I am unfortunate members, it is very dark, so it's very difficult to make out, but you can clearly see the fence line. You can clearly see where the site has been cleared and the adjoining land has been cleared. And a better view of that is obviously from our drone footage, which I've put on the right hand side. And then I will just take you through a few aerial timelines. So this is an aerial photo taken in 2023, 2020, 2017, and 2013-14. That was literally showing 10 years previous to the application. I didn't think members needed to see any more than that. This is the slide showing the 2 TPOs that flank the site and the adjoining land. And as you can see here, the actual application site is shown in red. So TPO 93 does envelope the site. Obviously, TPO 77 envelopes the additional land within the same ownership. And at the bottom, that is what they are known for in relation to the species within those 2 separate TPOs. To get an idea of what type of habitat was there historically, we have gone back to the phase 1 data, and as you can see here is clearly indicated that the crosshatch area was dense scrub, and there's just an aspect of woodland going into the top corner here, and then obviously the road is earmarked as black on this drawing. Just like to make members aware of this extract from Planning Policy Wales. Just give members time to read it, but I'll actually read it out to help. So potential applicants should not conduct any preemptive site clearance works before submitting a planning application, as this can make it more difficult for the development proposal to secure a net benefit for biodiversity. Where a site has been cleared prior to development, its biodiversity value should be deemed to have been as it was before any site investigations or clearance took place. A net benefit for biodiversity must be achieved from that point. Habitat status can be established through evidence remaining on site and local desk-based assessments. Planning authorities must ensure that they have access to these data sources. In such cases, habitat status will be presumed to be good in the absence of any evidence to the contrary. And that's an extract from Planning Policy Wales 6.4.16. In addition to that, obviously, most applications now require a green infrastructure. The green infrastructure follows a stepwise approach, and this image is another extract from Planning Policy Wales. Where we've got to with this is obviously we've gone through steps 1 to steps 4, and we've not been able to look at any baseline data for this. So that has made us have to look at step 6, and that is where we are at this present moment, because we can't prove that the application before us is providing a net benefit for biodiversity. What we've got here is 3 images, and this shows the site location in context with the 2 SACs and the SPA. So the top left-hand corner shows the Carmarthen Bay and Estuaries SAC, and that's the orange cross-hatched area. The top right shows the Carmarthen Bay SPA, which is the yellow hatched area. And then the bottom area is the Bristol Channel Approaches SAC, which is the blue hatched area. Now, obviously, as I mentioned previously in my presentation, the site is hydrologically linked to these 3 protected areas. So this is the application site. So this is the entrance coming in. I've described this area as the actual layout parking area before you open the gates, and then obviously you can see where the actual static caravan is at present on site, but not in accordance with the submitted plans. On the right hand side, you can see the remnants of the previous development, and obviously the tree, which is central to the site. When we conducted the members' site inspection, we walked up Morton Lane to look at neighbouring properties in the context of the site. And as you looked through the 2 neighbouring properties, you got the actual view of Griffithston Farm caravan site. So that's what you can see here with the caravans just above that hedge line. This is the I think the applicant described it as a temporary storage container on site for housing garden implements for him to maintain the site. That is not part of the current application, but it is on site at present. What I've got here then is slight timelines of the entranceway into the site along Morton Lane. So this road disappears off towards Saundersfoot. So you can see here back in March 2022 with the trees, and then obviously in May 25 the applicant has put a fence up fronting Morton Lane. And I believe that fence is part, or that development is currently unauthorised and would form part of an enforcement notice. Next slide shows Morton Lane, but further up, closer to the entrance to the site. And then obviously you can see here the road curves round, but then the actual the land comes off, forming part of the access then into the site. This is another, again, timeline aspect. So the view on the right is from a Google image from April 2011. So you can see that access in the gate area would be about this location at present. And then obviously this is a more of an updated view. This was taken in March 2024 when the clearance works were being undertaken. This is a bit further down, just off the bend, right opposite the entrance to the treatment works. So you can see here, this image was taken in March 2022. So you can see some scrub here, some trees in the distance. And then obviously this is the May 2025 where the land has been cleared, and looks like it's been ceded. The boundary to this land, which is not part of the application, but it is adjacent land in the same ownership. So the top left was taken in 2011. The top right was taken in March 2024 when the clearance works were underway, and then obviously the bottom one was taken on the member's site visit to the site in May 2025, just to show the difference. And then this is my final slide, members. This is just a few more photos to show the clearance works that were in place during March 2024. Thank you, Chair. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Very helpful, as always, very clear. Members, any?
I've just noticed that the stream is off again, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Charles, is that what you were coming in for as well?
No, it was a separate matter, actually. I wonder if I should wait until the stream's back on before I raise my matter.
Can you hold until we consider?
Yeah, I saw the same message come up on the screen, Chair, and as far as I can see, it's still streaming.
Have we got somebody
who's not in the meeting?
Yes, exactly. Who's able to watch and just confirm whether we're streaming or not.
Bear with me. Let me just check if there's anyone else in the room that is watching. 2 secs.
Thank you, Andrew. That'd be really helpful.
I've just had a message, Chair, that the streaming is fine.
Yeah. Okay. That's very helpful. Just get Andrew back. It's important that he hears any points. Yeah, it's okay. We've heard.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, I believe there is a slight delay in the stream, so they're not aware whether it's still running or not.
Okay. Well, I think Charles we've had information that it is, so if we get information that it's off again, we'll stop. But can you make your point?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Chair. Andrew, I was just wondering if we could go to the revised landscape plans that have been submitted by the applicant and sort of consider the implications of those before we go to speakers. I think it's only fair on those speakers that they see that information before they make their comments to the committee. I take your point that the applicant may not have been particularly clear about whether they supersede or not, but one would assume that he was wanting them considered by this committee in submitting them. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be great.
Yeah, just take me a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Charles. Point well made.
And I think in relation to that, Andrew, if you could just, confirm your up-to-date position in relation to the landscape and ecology issues, having taken into account those plans and the further information submitted by the applicant, that would be helpful.
Okay, just share my screen now. Please let me know when you can see it.
Yeah,
that's fine, Andrew,
fine.
Okay, so this is the plan that I haven't shown members. This is the plan that was the latest plan that was received Tuesday afternoon. As you can see here, there is.
And Andrew, sorry to interrupt you. I've just had a message on my screen saying the streaming audience can no longer view the meeting. So I wonder if we might just pause and see if we can find out what's going on. You can gather your thoughts in the meantime.
Thank you.
I think that's probably the same notification that Mike saw as well. Hopefully it is a notification that's not true, but it would be helpful if we could have indication from any people who are not in the meeting but who are watching.
It is showing the same slide, Madeline, as Andrew is currently on, so I think it is fine. But we're up to the same point.
Okay.
Excellent.
Sorry to interject.
Oh, not at all. It is important that the meeting is seen in its full with all of our discussions and all the presentations. So, Andrew, if you can just talk us through this, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As you can see from the top, it says informal thoughts on the mitigation. So obviously that's why I was unsure. There is additional land which we've mentioned several times during the presentation, and the agent is offering that land up for further mitigation. And as you can see here, he's looking to extend that area quite extensively. Our consideration here is obviously we're not completely aware of what the baseline is for this site, and the submitted PEA did not identify that baseline. It meant there was one reference to baseline within that report, and it was right at the start. So we, as officers, consider that in the current form, we don't have the relevant information and the relevant completed survey work with subsequent recommendations based on those surveys to give us that baseline data, because we understand that this area was formerly scrub and there was trees on this site. So offering up that area back as mitigation in our eyes is not mitigation, it's just bringing it back to where it was before. And every application needs to show net benefit. So we're in a position here where we've not got that information to prove a net benefit under the application. So this is why we've got the recommendations before members. I think that's all I can say on it at this moment in time. If someone would like further explanation, then obviously please point to the points that you'd want explained further, and we'll try our best to explain those.
No, I think, Andrew, that's very clear, and you have also shown us PPW paragraph 6.4.16 about clearance of sites and impact of biodiversity as well. So I think that's very helpful. Charles?
Chair, I'm very sorry to harp on. Andrew, you dealt with it, I think, very well from an ecology perspective, but does the provision of this further information have any implications in relation to the landscape issue that you've discussed as a reason for refusal?
The landscape aspect in relation to the capacity, Charles, or the landscape character impact is.
Well, both, I think, probably.
The capacity is the capacity. It's over capacity. There's, in our view, there's nothing that would change our view on that, other than a different type of development. And if that is, then obviously that needs to be considered on its merits at that time. In relation to the landscape character impact, the softening of the site may have a lesser of an impact, but this, when you consider what is there at the moment in relation to what was historically there, there's always going to be an element of impact considered. The lessening of that, does that make it more acceptable? Obviously that's for us to consider, but at this moment in time, that has to be considered in combination with the biodiversity aspect as well, because obviously they run together. So from that point of view, we're at a stage where we think that we still need the surveys to be completed to be able to prove the net benefit, to then know that we've got the right information, the right species there. You know, from our point of view, there's very little detail on this plan. So it's from our point of view, there's insufficient information in the application to support the application in that respect.
Thank you, Andrew. Sarah raised her hand. Sarah, you got a comment that you'd like to make?
Yeah, just to come in on the landscape character. I think our view is that those two reasons for refusal remain, regardless of the information that's been put before us, and we still consider, as Andrew identified, that there is insufficient information on biodiversity. In terms of landscape character, members will be aware from the site visit and from the proposal in front of them on screen that there is a substantial amount of hard standing proposed as part of this application, which does have an urbanising effect in a rural location. So that's part of the landscape character reason for refusal.
Thank you, Sarah. Members, has anybody else got any questions for clarification for Andrew? Yes, Dr. Plummer.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. I think a point in your very clear and very full case information, Andrew, was whether or not a touring caravan effectively had a different landscape impact, or might be argued to have a different landscape impact or consideration than a gypsy traveller caravan, as it were. Can you just clarify that point? Because I think it was argued, or the case was put.
Yeah, obviously the actual SPG that we've adopted looks at caravans. Now, whether that is a static caravan, whether that is a touring caravan, it's looking at the caravan aspect and the impact that those caravans have on that landscape character area. There is a difference between a touring and a static, and they differ quite significantly in relation to a static, because they're permanently and larger. But then again, the tourers, whilst they have the potential to be stored there throughout the whole year, they have the chance to move more regularly, and that in itself causes some impact as well. But in relation to the character, it's the stark contrast between rural landscape and that softer landscape visual appearance, and then you see the hard aspects of the contrasting in colours, and the associated development that goes with that obviously has an impact as well. So it's about, when you view the national park, you want to be able to see certain aspects which are developed and they are set aside, and areas that are undeveloped, and those areas that are undeveloped are very important, and they are very carefully controlled in relation to policy 7, and that's where we're at. And obviously the actual landscape character assessment is there to support that aspect, to support those areas that are the softer areas and edges around developments as well.
Thank you.
So hopefully
thank you, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. And Councillor Williams, Chris.
Morning, Andrew, and thank you for a comprehensive report. Just whether it's for you or whether it's for the highways, it did state in the report that officers are aware of flood risk, which are zone 3, and PCC highway officers they've advised an alternative route. I'm well familiar with this area, and over the winter months I've been sort of actively working with PCC because there has been flooding on that road. But my question would be where would be the alternative route in, especially for emergency vehicles and other vehicles? Because if that road is flooded and sometimes it's impassable by foot, so I just want a bit of clarification on that, please. Thank you.
Okay, so as we're all aware, we most of us have visited the site. So Moreton Lane is a through road. It's not the easiest of roads to travel on because of the rutting nature and narrowness within the lane and overhanging obstacles, which will prevent certain vehicles from using it. Highways have considered the application and don't consider there to be significant objection to it. In relation to the emergency services, though, and the potential for them to access a site from a different route subject to flooding occurring on the bottom aspect, they've asked for a swept path analysis. We have not asked for that from the agent at this time, because obviously we have other reasons for refusal which would outweigh that aspect, and if we were minded to approve, then obviously that could be covered by way of a condition.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for that.
Happy with that, Chris. Thank you. Andrew, if you could stop sharing your screen now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
All the questions. No, that's fine. It's all the questions for you for the moment. So we'll move on to our first speaker. I hope Helen Williams is with us.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Helen. You're very welcome. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Helen Williams. I am a resident on Incline Way. I've actually been in residence for just over 2 years, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the residents of Incline Way. And actually, just in clarification with Andrew's comment about we don't quite know what was on site, when we viewed our property in January 2023, you could not see the bridle path, Moulton Lane, from the back of the house. So that hopefully gives an indication of how things might have changed. But I'm going to really just summarise. Obviously, all the members have been in receipt of the Pegasus planning report that we commissioned, and that's obviously quite a comprehensive report. And you've also been in receipt of the individual objections by the residents in the dwellings that overlook the site. So what I want to do really is just go through some bullet points, but that report obviously has more detail. The first thing we would do is question the need in the National Park and the PCC for a Gypsy Traveller site, given the applicant is resident in Pontypool and the Torf Arm GTAA has capacity for the next 5 years. And if there is a need, it should be located in an area outside of the National Park. And we note that there's already an established site at Kilgetty, which is a neighbouring town. Multiple residents of Incline Way since 1984 do not recall any caravans on the site since they were last removed in 1993. That's as a direct comment to part of the application. When the dwellings that overlook the site were built, planning required the design of the dwellings to have windows at the rear. So as a result, all of the dwellings have their main large windows overlooking the site, and the nature of the site means that those dwellings sit above the proposed site and look down on it. So regardless of the changes that we've noted in the location of the static caravan, the day room, and any planting, it's not a horizontal view. They're looking down from above. There's always going to be a very clear view of the development. Referring to Appendix E of the planning application, we just reiterate what Andrew Richards said regarding the 5 appeal decisions, which aren't applicable as they don't apply to sites in the National Park and none have similar characteristics. The impact of character and visual amenity of the area, the proposed development, has been facilitated by the removal of a substantial number of trees from the site and the installation of a substantial area of hard standing in their place. And there are various photos within the Pegasus report that show the visual impact. And we've got before and after photos from all of the dwellings there. The site's being presented as already developed. However, 12 months ago, it was woodland, as Andrew's clearly shown. There's obviously a concern regarding the impact on biodiversity. The land was cleared during nesting season in March 2024, and it resulted in the urbanisation of a previously unspoilt woodland. Attempts to show enhancement and mitigation on the proposed site use a post-development baseline, again, obviously supported by the comments that Andrew has made. There have been 2 previous refused planning applications and 1 dismissed appeal, which all state that any development would intrude into the open setting beyond the village, spoiling the rural character of the area. The site forms an important part of the landscape setting of the village and is also of nature conservation importance and therefore to be protected from inappropriate development. It's outside the recognised residential settlement limits, and the recognised boundary is that at the bottom of the gardens of Incline Way. The ecological impacts, particularly obviously the HPA recognises otters. Otters have been seen in the stream to the side of the site. There were also badders, which have been very much not apparent since the site has been cleared, and the site obviously provided a wildlife corridor in the area, and that's been very much destroyed. Water to the site, the applicant is known to have connected to a private water supply. There are 3 dwellings, I believe, that use that supply, and they've all noted a reduction in water pressure. We question whether that connection should have been made or whether it should be going to a public water supply. We have a question mark on sewage. An incorrect postcode has been used on the application that shows the development site.
Chair, I don't know whether you can hear the alarm going off, but it is going off the 5-minute timer.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Perhaps
quickly. Can I just make a further point about sewage? Just to say that the incorrect postcode has been used on the application, which shows the site in the middle of Saundersfoot, which we believe has misled Welsh Water, and those latest plans show a connection to what we believe is a pressurised storm system and not a standard residential sewage system. But thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Helen. Members, have you got any questions? Andrew, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, can I just come back on 2 points if possible, please, Chair?
Yes.
The first one is in relation to the local connection aspect that was raised. In the officer's report, you will see that whilst there isn't a consideration needed to assess the need for a Gypsy and Traveller site, there is no requirement for a local connection to be assessed.
Okay.
And then secondly, in relation to the foul drainage, we are aware that the postcode was incorrectly stated, but obviously as part of our consultation process, grid references are used. The plans are passed over to Welsh Water, and in addition to that, the agent is aware of the high pressure pipe which cannot be connected into, so an alternative solution would need to be explored if members were minded to approve.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. That's helpful clarification. Members, any other questions for Helen? Thank you, Helen. That was very clear. We'll move on to our, Sam, sorry. Councillor Scanlon.
Sorry, Chair. Just for clarity, Helen, with regard to the static caravan there, I'm sure I saw in some previous notes, and obviously many of us attended the site visit. Was it said that there was somebody actually inhabiting the caravan? Is that correct? In the notes that we received?
There's no one inhabiting the caravan, although it was noted that the applicant was in residence the night before your site visit.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Thank you for the clarity.
I think that was noted in our minutes there, Sam, of the site visit. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our second speaker, which is the agent for the application, Andrew Vaughan Harris. Morning, Andrew. Bordar.
Good morning.
As always, you're very welcome, and you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think 5 minutes can cover my 3 pages, but it's good to have a vibrant discussion. Thank you for your time to look at the site visit last week. I was pleased that you got on site and saw the issues. Maybe I'll talk about some of the recent information. Obviously, I've been doing this a long time, and some of my team have lots of experience with traveller sites all of South Wales. So when we were brought to this scheme, some of the works were done, but we have tried to put a competent scheme together. You know, a set of plans, surveys, a tree survey was done, but we were under pressure to get the application in because of the pending enforcement. So the application was registered. Now, quite early on in the application, the need of biodiversity work was formally required. Now, I initially thought, well, we'll do a green infrastructure statement. We'll show lots of planting as much as we can. There is an argument that it is a previously developed site. You saw the ruin. Yes, it has gone back into the landscape considerably, and there's some allegations of how much has been declared, but certainly there was a building there. I've seen that with my own eyes. So we initially didn't do the full biodiversity appraisal, and shall we say these biodiversity green infrastructure statements are still relatively new, and new guidance is coming out. Anyway, we then did the preliminary ecological appraisal, which we only received about 10 days ago. And what I was hoping for was, as it was such an important bit of information, that the application could have been deferred, because I was still sitting down with my team and my ecologist to see how we could bring biodiversity gain, because the applicant has lots of land. He can plant 40 trees. You know, we have to bring biodiversity gain, and I think we're still developing that. But your officers felt they wanted to make a determination, and that is where we are. I formally requested a deferment, and that's not happened. So we'll see where you go with that today, but we have an appeal and we have an option of a free go, and I'm sure they will be explored. But I just like to remind members, you've had a gypsy policy for 25 years. 25 years, 4 development plans, and you haven't delivered one traveller site. There's a certificate of lawfulness for one site in Creswell Quay for Mr. Ethel Boswell, and that was done under the 10-year rule. So that is disappointing that you have a presumption in favour to try and deliver a traveller site, because I almost look at it as a type of affordable unit. Now, the park is a special place. I walk the coast path every month. I'm a former officer. I don't want the park spoilt. But what comes to mind with me is there a site that the park can deliver a traveller site? And when this landed on my desk, I thought to myself, hang on, adjacent to settlement limits, reasonable access, close to services, some evidence of previously developed, this might be the first site that is acceptable. And that's why I put my name to it. And we still need to investigate this. You have 2 reasons for refusal: visual impact, ecology issues. The ecology issues aren't resolved, and they're going to come back to you at some form. Visual impact, I really struggle with that one, especially if more and more planting is going to come along. A lot has been made about Pembrokeshire County Council and their role in delivering gypsy traveller sites, and I will give a clap to Pembrokeshire County Council, because a lot of authorities I deal with, they're one of the better ones for delivery. However, the need is great. We've heard of 55, 63 pitches needed, and all the public sites in Pembrokeshire are full. So as Welsh Government, the Senate says you have to look to private sites to deliver further sites. And I had a conversation with Head of Planning Harriet Lavender only a month ago, and she told me she has nervousness of delivering the 4 sites in a new development plan. 4 sites have been shown, and they're going to be deliverability issues. So they could be 5 years, they could be 10 years away. We still have a need. So we've got to look to these private sites. So I'm sure members are going to endorse what your officers say today, because I think it was premature to make an application today. But I still think this site has some merit. We have a need. It's only one pitch. This applicant often used to come to Saundersfoot when he was young, so has a connection. He is in bricks and mortar. He wants to go back to his traveller roots and live in a caravan. And this is a site which I think has to be further investigated. So I'll leave it there because I've set my stall out and I'd be delighted to take any questions. But we need to find more sites, guys. It's a type of affordable housing. You've got new housing being built in Saundersfoot for new residential with affordable. This is a type of affordable house, and we need to find some sites, whether in Pembrokeshire or whether they are in the park. And I think this site for one unit, tucked away with extensive mitigation, more reports, we'll look at the otters, we'll look at the impact, more planting.
Chair, can I say again, sorry, that my timer is going.
There we are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I'd be delighted to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. As ever, clear. So members, any points, any questions for Andrew? Councillor Williams, Chris.
Morning, Andrew, and thank you for the presentation. I didn't think I'd ever meet someone who's got more knowledge on Saundersfoot than myself, but thank you for that. You did mention in your report then that obviously that you know the area and the history, and you're familiar with a residential or site or something in the proposed application. I'm very familiar with that area. I drove past it for 30 years on the post, and I remember walking up and down there with my mum and dad when I was a child. And in all that time, I can never remember a residential unit on there. But if you can clarify that, and one thing you did say in the site visit last week, that you did mention that you were willing to show pictures of before and after, and I don't know whether you've got that now, but I'd be quite happy to see if you've got it. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Chris. In my past, and I go back to the 90s, I was area planning officer for 2 years for Saundersfoot. It was my patch for 2 years. So I remember going here with Keith Halpin, who was your then enforcement officer, looking at some caravans here, and the park took enforcement action. So I recall that. Now, don't get me wrong, that's 30 years ago, and the land has, more growth has come back and whatever. But as you saw, Chris, from the site visit, there was remnants of a building there. So the history was, there was some caravans there, they were unauthorised, but I do recall that a long, long time ago. To answer your questions on photographs, only yesterday, the applicant, Mr. Evans, did furnish me with some historical photos, and I think Andrew Richards has delivered a lot of photographs. So we have presented some to the National Park. I don't think there are anything that particularly different than what you've seen from Andrew Richards, and the Google aerials are difficult for all the tree growth, but history tells me Rose Cottage was there. It may have been 50, 60 years ago. So it isn't a virgin site. It's integrating back into the landscape. I get that. There has been some clearance. There's some debate about how many trees have been removed. But my client doesn't want to remove trees. He wants to screen the site. So I don't know if that's helpful to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew and Chris. And Andrew Richards has raised his hand. Do you want to come back in, Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Just on 2 points. I did receive photos yesterday from the agent, but those photos were no better than the ones we were already using within the slideshow, so they weren't included. And on a second note, in relation to the history of the site, I have before me a report that was drafted in 1972, which states that the local planning authority would contend that the presence of a ruined cottage on the site has no bearing on the present appeal. Obviously, it was a refusal and appealed, and the appeal was lost. The ruins are no higher than 2.5 feet above the surrounding ground, and it is viewed the local planning authority that the use has been abandoned and therefore the existing use and rights do not form one of the factors which are properly considered in this appeal, and that was dated in 1972, which is over 50 years ago. So
thank you,
hopefully
Andrew,
that adds a bit of clarification.
Indeed, obviously nature moves on in 50 years, which we're very grateful for. Emma Gladstone.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I'd just like to clarify the situation really regarding the level of need identified in the Pembrokeshire Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment from 2019. So it did identify an immediate need for 9 residential pitches over a 5-year period, 2019 to the end of 2024, and then an additional need for 30 pitches over the period 2025 to 2033. The immediate need for 9 pitches by the end of 2024 was met, and Pembrokeshire County Council over that period had approved 14 pitches. So therefore there was in excess and 5 residential pitches granted permission. So this in effect would reduce the additional need for 30 pitches over the time period 2025 to 2033 from 30 to 25 if you take account of that surplus 5 pitches that has been approved. There is one planning appeal with PEDU awaiting determination in Pembrokeshire County Council for 2 pitches in Sageston. And then there are 4 site allocations made in Pembrokeshire County Council's Deposit Local Development Plan 2 for 55 pitches, which exceeds that level of need. That LDP 2 for Pembrokeshire County Council will be submitted for examination in the summer, and that will determine then the level of deliverability of those allocated sites for 55 pitches in their LDP. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. That's really helpful to have that additional information. Thank you, members. You've heard from our officer and officers, indeed. Thank you all for your information and comments made, and from 2 speakers. Anybody want to open up the debate here? Chris, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In regards with Mr. Andrew Vaughan Harris, I fully agree that yeah, absolutely more should be done in Pembrokeshire for Gypsy Traveller sites, and possibly enough hasn't been done. However, I do not think this is the correct location, and I'm going to support the officer's recommendation of refusal of the application. I will obviously allow other people to have a conversation and give their views, but I do feel that the site clearance of vegetation has changed the landscape character of this location, and the potential result in the use of the loss of biodiversity and the natural habitat. There are many other policy number 14, which if you want, I'm quite happy to read out, is that the conservation of Pembrokeshire Coast National Park of LDP2 seeks the conservation of the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park resistant development that would cause significant visual intrusion, being sensitively or unsympathetically situated within the landscape, and or fail to harmonise with or enhance the landform and landscape character of the national park. I simply don't believe this is the correct location for this site, and I'm offering to support the officer's recommendation, and I hope someone else will support me and second me. Thank you.
So you're proposing that we follow officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Rosie, I'll come to you next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thanks to the officers, all of them, and thank you, Emma, for that additional clarity. That was really useful. It does seem to me that landscape character here is important. We respect all the range of policies we've been given details of, including policy 53. It's clearly a rural character area, and the ecological impacts are already potentially concerning, but not helped by the retrospective nature of the application. Certainly on the basis of the information we've heard, reading the report and my own assessment in relation to the policies, it is, as Chris, I think, has ably said, it's an inappropriate application on an inappropriate site in this circumstances. So I'm very fully content to second Chris's motion and support the officer's recommendation for refusal.
Thank you, Rosie. Sam, Councillor Skirnblackmore.
Thank you, Chair. Rosie beat me to it then. I was going to second, so thank you, Rosie. I am obviously in favour of the refusal. Going back to what Chris said as well, yes, we are in crisis. We are not building houses fast enough. And obviously that goes for the travelling community as well. I know obviously my side in Kilgetty places the importance of supporting things on this. However, on the site meeting, the one thing, regardless of the area itself, the one thing that stood out to me was the bridle lane, the lanes going up and down, the issues that may impact with flooding on the environment, and also touring caravans and so on, which have been mentioned before. As a past person who had a tourer, I just cannot imagine, regardless of what is said in these notes, the impact it will have trying to get touring caravans up and down that short and very narrow road. So there are other things I will let other members come in as well, but I think unfortunately I do support the refusal by the officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Members, any other comments or thoughts? Well, we've heard a great deal of detail from our officers, for which we're grateful. We've also heard from a local resident and indeed the agent. And now I have a proposer in Councillor Chris Williams and a seconder in Dr. Rosie Plummer that we should go with officer recommendation to refuse for both landscape and cumulative impacts and impact on the special qualities of the park. That's a summary of the two detailed refusal reasons given in our papers. I'm intending to go to the vote on this unless anybody else wants to comment. In that case, members, I'll see your, please raise your hands to go with officer recommendation.
Issues.
Thank you, members. Can I see any against? And any abstentions, please? So we have 2 abstentions, 13-4. Thank you, members. The motion is passed for refusal of this application. I suggest that we probably come to a suitable time to have a quick break here. It's just coming up to 11:25. If we resume at 11:25, please, for the next application. Thank you very much, members.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Can you hear me now?
We can, Mike. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Well done.
Diolch yn fawr. I put my comment about the third application, and I've also abstained for this one because I lost connection during discussion.
Diolch, Mike.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
We noted you as an abstention on that one, and it's helpful to have that explanation.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
See you later.
Right, members, how are we doing? Just a minute or so to go. Encourage you back to your seats. Joyce and all, welcome back, everybody. Just making sure everybody's back in place. So we'll move on to agenda item 5B, MP 240484 full. This is redevelopment of the former motel and restaurant site at Roche, Haverfordwest. I will not read the full details as Sarah is going to present this and will cover all aspects of this proposal for us. Sarah Morris, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check that you can see my screen?
Can indeed, thank you. Currently it's not full screen though. You can see your slides to one side. That's perfect, thank you.
Corrected, brilliant. Okay. The report before members in relation to this application begins on pages 52 of your packs. The proposal before you is for the redevelopment of the former motel restaurant site from mixed commercial and community use, including village shop, post office, bistro, restaurant and conference facilities, together with new vehicular access, car parking and highway improvements, landscaping and biodiversity enhancements, plus change of use of adjacent land to provide tourism developments comprising of up to 18 timber-style holiday lodges, together with parking and landscaping. Amended scheme. This application was originally received by the authority in September 2024. During the course of the application, amended plans have been received, reducing the number of lodges from 25 to 18 and removing previously included industrial units from the scheme. The amendments also added further landscaping and biodiversity enhancement in the form of a wild meadow. The main issues identified for this application are shown on screen, and I will touch on these as we go through the presentation. The site is located at the edge of Roche Village, 3.5 kilometres northeast of Knowlton and 9 kilometres northwest of Haverfordwest, and 14 kilometres southeast of St David's. The majority of Roche is outside the National Park and within the County Council's area of planning jurisdiction. The village is categorised as a service village within the Pembrokeshire County Council Local Development Plan, where there is considered to be a good provision of services and facilities to meet the day-to-day needs of the population, but where it plays a more limited role for the wider population. The County Council's LDP encourages proposals to develop and expand employment premises in service villages as a means of reducing the need for people to travel long distances to work in towns. The site is situated alongside and to the west of the A487, which forms the boundary of the National Park in this location. The proposed site is wholly within the National Park and a prominent site as visitors travel through the area in order to visit nearby Newgale Beach or travel between Haverfordwest and St David's. Whilst technically in a countryside location, the site has a strong relationship with the village of Roche. It is the site of the former Rochegate Motel, which closed in 2008 and is currently in a state of significant disrepair. The part of the site previously occupied by the motel is considered to fall within the definition of previously developed land set out in Planning Policy Wales Edition 12. The remainder of the site is considered to be greenfield in nature. To the immediate south and west of the site lie agricultural fields, with the coast and Newgale Beach further west. And this is some of the drone imagery that was taken around a month or so ago, which is helpful, I think, in showing the site in its wider context. To the immediate north of the site is the C3067, with further agricultural fields beyond that. To the east of the site is the A487, which separates the site from the main village of Roach. The proposal is for a range of uses within a site measuring 2.64 hectares, as stated in the planning statement accompanying this proposal. Of this area, approximately 0.45 hectares, so just under half a hectare, was occupied by the former Roachgate Motel and is categorised as previously developed land. The remaining 2.19 hectares occupies greenfield land. The proposal in front of you encompasses 18 lodges, the gate building, which would include proposed commercial development in the form of a shop and post office, 2 conference rooms, sorry, managers' accommodation and storage, WC provision and changing areas, rental unit hot desk accommodation, kitchen and freezer area, bistro area, external seating area, bin storage, new vehicular access from the A487 with an exit only onto the C3067, associated parking spaces including 8 ULEV charging points, and designated disabled parking spaces, secure cycle parking, an amenity and green space area, and a new pedestrian crossover point to Roach Village with associated provision. There is also a proposed wild meadow and landscaping. It is noted in the business plan submitted with the application that the proposed village shop would have a traditional agricultural theme and showcase locally produced products from preservatives to vegetables and meat produce. The post office is anticipated to operate 3 to 5 days a week and also enable banking transactions. With regard to the proposed bistro and bar, the A3 use, the premises is proposed to be open from 8:30 AM on weekdays. As part of a discussion over conditions, the agent for the application has proposed amending condition 21 to enable later opening until 12 AM rather than 10 PM on weekdays. Given the distance from other residential properties and the separation generated by the road, this is considered acceptable and a recommended change. The bistro will seat up to 68 interior covers and an additional 50 covers outside in summer season. The proposed conference centre would be multifunctional, with the business plan stating that the room would be available for hire for a variety of community, social, sporting and educational uses. One of the amendments introduced in March 2025 was an increase in landscaping and the introduction of a wild meadow to ensure delivery of biodiversity enhancements on site, as shown on screen. The extensive landscaping proposed now runs to 0.5 hectares, and the plan in front of you shows the proposed location of a new swale attenuation pond to support sustainable drainage on site. The gate building is primarily single-storey in nature, with a middle 2-storey section creating an entrance focus and providing a manager's accommodation area. The materials proposed include slate on the 2-storey section of the roof, with the single-storey roof using standard seam zinc metal roofing. Windows are described as colour-coated UPVC glazed screens or metal. Timber cladding is proposed as a material treatment for both the gate and the bistro, which sit on either side of the main entrance. The main entrance is proposed to be natural random stonework. In order to ensure an appropriate standard of design is achieved, a condition relating to materials has been proposed within your report, specifying with windows specified as metal and a natural timber cladding sought for the gate building. Subject to conditions, the design is considered acceptable and to comply with relevant policies. These are the elevational drawings of the gate building. This shows the internal layout of the single-storey element of the gate building. Going back to the main issues raised by the application, One of those is the policy and principle of development. Relevant policies for consideration here include GN7 countryside, Policy 54 community facilities, Policy 56 retail in the national park, and Policy 57 town and district shopping centres. As set out in your report, proposals for new or extended community facilities in the countryside can be acceptable where they meet the criteria of Policy 54 community facilities. Policy 54 community facilities states, with new and extended facilities, these will be permitted where they are convenient to public transport, shops and other services where this is required to serve the needs of the user. The proposed village shop post office accords with the definition of a community facility. The proposed restaurant bistro is within the same use class A3 as a public house. It is a matter of judgment whether the proposed conference facilities are classed as a community facility, as it is similar to a village or community hall. However, it is dependent on the degree to which the facility would be used by the local community. In terms of Policy 54 community facilities, it is noted that the policy requirement is for proposals to be well related to serve the community's needs. The proposed facilities would be situated on the opposite side of the A487 to the centre of Roach, which is a busy road and has a current speed limit of 40 miles per hour. It is noted that the proposal includes a proposed additional pedestrian crossing to ensure the safe crossing of the A487. The local highway authority is satisfied with this element, subject to its control via planning condition, and it is considered to provide an appropriate and safe mechanism to link the proposals to the main village of Roach. It is also noted that there is a bus stop on the same side of the A487 with close proximity to the site. And I'm very grateful that we do have highways officers on the call today if there are any specific highway questions that members would like to ask. In terms of the retail policy position, as noted in your report, the site is in a countryside location in terms of planning, policy, and the application has not demonstrated how a sequential approach has been undertaken as required by Future Wales Policy 6 and Planning Policy Wales. This is set against the fact that it will introduce a service to a community which is not currently served by a village shop in a location which is immediately adjacent to a settlement. A retail impact assessment has indicated that there will not be any displacement from other nearby retail centres, and weight should also be given to the reuse of previously developed land. Overall, officers consider that the proposal is likely to be acceptable in terms of retail impacts, despite not complying with Policy 57 town and district shopping centres and the sequential test requirements of Planning Policy Wales and Future Wales. This slide shows the second storey element of the gate building, which is proposed to be managerial accommodation. This is considered a necessary element of the site and is acceptable subject to a planning condition ensuring that it is not used for general residential use, which is listed as condition 20 in your reports. These plans show the details of the 3 lodge types proposed. So this is type A and type B. With regard to the design of the lodges themselves, they are utilitarian in style using charcoal grey roof tiles, anthracite grey UPVC windows and composite wood cladding of a grey colour. Decking areas are proposed alongside together with structural glass balconies. Type A and C are 2-bed and type B is a 3-bed. A jacuzzi is also proposed with type C lodges, shown on your screen there. An additional condition is proposed in relation to the lodges, which is not included in your pack, in relation to the colour of the lodges being retained as grey in perpetuity to ensure that they minimise landscape impact. The development of 18 lodges is proposed entirely on the greenfield land within the site. The supporting statement with the application states that the proposed lodges meet the legal definition of a caravan. Policy 38 visitor economy of LDP2 allows limited caravan, camping and chalet development in accordance with Policy 41. Policy 41, shown on your screens, allows for the consideration of sites away from the coast and Preseli's and in locations not intervisible with them. Proposals coming forward must ensure that the new development avoids sensitive locations, that units are sited so that they can be readily assimilated into the landscape without causing an unacceptable adverse effect on the national park landscape, and that there are no unacceptable adverse cumulative effects when considered in conjunction with other development in the locality. The supporting text to the policy identifies what size of development is classed as small, medium or large. The area of land in this proposal covered by the lodges is just over 1 hectare of land in size. LDP2 identifies sites of this size between 0.5 hectares and 3 hectares as being medium in size. The proposed development site sits within St Bride's Bay landscape character area. The authority has developed supplementary planning guidance on caravan and camping sites. The guidance shows there to be a high or medium sensitivity to medium static sites in this landscape character area. The SPG summarises that capacity for further development in the area is limited. Moreover, the capacity is limited to small static sites and medium and small seasonal sites back from the coast, avoiding slopes and skylines. The applicants have submitted a landscape and visual impact assessment as part of the proposal, which has assessed the landscape and visual impacts from 9 viewpoints within the national park. And if you can see on your screen, the yellow dots and arrows show the viewpoints taken. Natural Resources Wales have expressed concerns around the assessments submitted and have stated that they will maintain an objection if amended information is not provided. And I've included the text from the NRW concern on screen here. So they are concerned that the proposal would be a substantial incursion into the open countryside of the national park in a prominent location where it would relate poorly to existing development, local landscape pattern and prevailing rural character. They consider that being on a local high point, the lodge development would be visually prominent. And there are 2 particular viewpoints that they're concerned about, which we will have a look at in a minute. Those are viewpoint 8, which is the entrance to a public footpath off Folkestone Road, and viewpoint 9, which is the entrance to Rainbolt's Hill Farm and campsite from the A487. They are concerned that at these locations the development would be seen on the ridgeline and that it would result in an incursion into the countryside which would be obvious and incongruous. They are also concerned that the proposals would require the removal and relocation of the existing earth bank and hedgerow along the southern side of the unnamed lane required for a visibility display. As part of their objection, NRW expressed concerns that annotations on the viewpoint photographs underestimated the extent of lodge development and requested additional photo montages, photo wires from viewpoints 8 and 9. They confirmed that their concerns should be registered as an objection if these were not received. The applicant's landscape specialist responded as follows, stating that the proposed main building at Rochgate is orientated in such a way that the massing, when viewed from the south, the direction of photo viewpoints 8 and 9, is significantly reduced when compared to the current derelict buildings. Also, the holiday lodges are small, relatively unobtrusive structures. As the landscape strategy shows, mitigation measures are extensive and robust. A 15-metre wide woodland belt is proposed to surround the site. This woodland at the time of planting will contain understory whips, 2.5-metre high feathered trees and 3 5 to 4 metre high standard trees. The landscape mitigation measures will provide significant screening from day one. Prior to full establishment, whilst the proposed main building may still be visible, the lodges will be screened. Once established, the landscape mitigation will completely screen all views from the south and west. As part of the recommended list of conditions in your pack, there is one condition which requires a phasing scheme, which would ensure that landscaping was introduced at an appropriate time in terms of the delivery of the development were it permitted. And another condition which requires submission of further details around a landscape scheme to ensure that the authority had appropriate controls on the type of species and an overall planting mix. And a final condition requiring a landscape management plan to be developed for the site, which as part of that would require replanting if some landscaping did not initially take. Overall, in consultation with our specialist policy officer who advises us on landscape matters, National Park officers have considered that the LVIA accords with the guidelines in GLVIA, and we largely accept the outcomes of the assessment. So I'll take you through the viewpoints. This is viewpoint 1 and viewpoint 2 of the LVIA information provided. National Park officers consider that the redevelopment of this site would deliver a significant enhancement from viewpoint 1, so that's the top viewpoint. This is looking at viewpoint 3 and viewpoint 4. More limited improvements to the visual impact from viewpoint 4 here. Impact on longer range views from viewpoint 5 and 6 are likely to be screened within the landscape. Viewpoint 7 is also screened. However, viewpoint 8, there is likely to be some visual intrusion in the short term in particular until landscaping is established. And if we move on to viewpoint 9, so this is the entrance to Rainbows Hill, where there is a public right of way, there would be an impact here because of the increased extent of the site. But again, this would be mitigated to some extent by landscaping. So members are asked to consider and balance up the proposals in front of you. In terms of the historic interests as part of the special qualities of the National Park, the National Park Buildings Conservation Officer has considered the relationship between the site and Roche Castle. Section 314A of the 1990 Town and Country Planning Act, in considering whether to grant planning permission for development which affects a listed building or its setting, states that the local planning authority must have special regard to the desirability of preserving the listed building, the setting of the building, or any features of special architectural or historic interest the building possesses. The National Park officer has noted that the site is visible from the castle parapet, and he helpfully had this photograph that he'd taken not so long ago. Whilst elements of the new build are two-storied, he concluded that the combination of the proposed planting, the distance and topography mean that the proposal will have a negligible impact on the setting of Rochegate Castle, which is Grade 1 listed, and that there will be no impact on the setting of other listed buildings, including the gates to Roche Castle and St Mary's Church. And I have some close-up photos here of the site. And that's the housing development directly opposite the site. So in terms of access, the proposed site plan illustrates that a new access to the development will be created off the A487 to enable vehicles to directly enter the site from the arterial road, and the existing access off the C road will become site exit. The local highway authority have commented that it is most likely that the higher volume of traffic will be approaching from the south, and thus a left turn into the site would not significantly impede the flow of traffic on the A478. The local highway authority therefore welcome the traffic flow strategy for the site. It is noted that the new access onto the A478 would cross the highway verge and therefore require an additional licence from highways, which is considered under separate legislation. The access width, radii and stopping site distances proposed are identified as being suitable by the local highway authority, as are the visibility displays and swept path analysis, which demonstrates space for emergency and refuse vehicles to manoeuvre safely in, out and around the site. With regard to connections to the main village of Roach, the proposed site plan shows that the site will be accessible to pedestrians via a new footway. So if I just move on to this photograph, you can see this is the bus stop at present, and there is a little bit of a footpath, but the intention is for this to be increased as part of this proposal, as well as, so that's one existing crossing which is lower down, and the intention is to have further crossing pedestrian refuge point further up as well. So both of those are included in your list of planning conditions as a requirement for delivery prior to occupation of the site. The application has been supported by a TRICS assessment of trip generation within the transport statement, and overall subject to control by appropriate conditions in relation to timing of works, delivery of parking, various highway improvements. The proposal is considered acceptable in terms of matters of transport. In terms of the application as a whole, it is one where members do need to weigh up some of the impacts of the scheme against its likely benefits. The scheme as a whole is recommended for approval by officers on the basis that it is considered likely to deliver economic and community benefits, including the provision of a village shop and post office. Whilst there is an extension into a greenfield site as a result of the lodge element of the proposal, which will introduce some visual impact on the national park, this is set against significant visual improvement of the existing area of previously developed land and the wider community and economic benefits identified. The significant landscaping proposed, together with biodiversity enhancements, are welcomed and will assist in assimilating the scheme into the landscape. The proposal is recognised as a departure to LDP Policy 57, Town and District Shopping Centres of LDP 2, and also a departure to Policy 41, Caravan Camping and Chalet Development of LDP 2, in that it introduces retail uses outside a retail centre and a medium static site in an area with medium to high sensitivity to this type of development. The proposal has not demonstrated a sequential test approach to site selection for retail, but it has demonstrated that there will not be an impact on the retail hierarchy of the national park. The significant landscaping proposed and design mean that whilst there is considered likely to be some additional visual intrusion from the development, it is not such that it will cause an unacceptable adverse effect on the landscape of the national park or its special qualities. The proposed development is considered to comply with Policy 54, Community Facilities, Policy 7, Countryside of LDP 2, and be compatible with the purposes of the national park. Overall, therefore, the proposal is considered to accord with the strategic direction of the adopted Local Development Plan 2. A number of conditions are proposed to ensure appropriate delivery, timing of various elements of the scheme, and to control the various elements of the development in accordance with the requirements of national and local policy. On balance, subject to these conditions, officers recommend that the scheme is considered acceptable and recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Well continued with I know you've got bad throat. So thank you very much for that. Members, any questions for clarification from Sarah? Dr. Plummer.
Thanks, and thanks, Sarah. Bad luck with your throat. A number of questions. One I noted is a departure you mentioned from retail policy, and I just wonder about the extent of viability of the proposed community shop. In fact, it's not quite clear to me what it's meant by community shop, whether that's going to be handed over and run by the community for the community, or whether it's an entirely commercial entity run by the site owners. So I just wonder about the safeguards and viability, given that the recommendation for approval gives that kind of quite a significant weight. That's one question. You also mentioned external finishes, and I couldn't find that in the conditions. Perhaps you can just point me at that condition. It did seem to me it was a sort of a shame that the opportunity wasn't taken for more sustainable use of materials on site. I appreciate what lodges are like, but you know that we should be looking at sustainability in whatever ways we can do, or encouraging it. So, and on condition 9, I know we haven't adopted the dark skies guidance, but I wonder if we can reference that, or you know, whether there's any opportunity at least to begin to give it some airtime and weight, if not force of power. And I wonder, in that relation to retail, whether we can actually condition the retail parts that it remains retail, or would at least require permission to depart from retail, because Roach did have a very viable post office and shop. I think it was actually one of the casualties of Horizon, but I noticed that although it was up for sale and looking for another occupant, it didn't get one. So that one, you know, makes one wonder about the viability. I'm sure some of our speakers will probably comment on that, but if you could pick up those couple of points, that'd be really helpful. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. We do have the applicant speaking a bit later, so I think he can probably add more information on how he intends to operate the shop. My understanding is that it will remain as a single ownership, and that it's all part of a package that ensures the overall viability of the scheme. In terms of the viability of it, I would imagine that the lodge element would enhance the viability of it, because people who were staying there would be likely to purchase, you know, milk and bread and so on. But I will defer that to the applicant as somebody who would be better placed to respond on that. In terms of the conditions that we've put on the scheme, condition 24 requires submission of details of materials for the gate building to be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. We haven't required that for the lodges, recognising that they generally are prefabricated and, you know, come as a package. But if members feel very strongly on that, we could certainly consider that point. In terms of retail, we have suggested condition 22, which limits the retail area to 177 metres as identified on the approved plan. And we have removed permitted development rights from the A3 bistro use so that it can't change into A1, so that we're keeping control on the amount of retail floor space within the site. There is permitted rights to move from A3 to A1, but not from A. So if they wanted to use the A1 retail area for something else, it would require a change of use application. So hope that gives you some comfort in terms of conditions that we're suggesting on that.
Okay. Sorry, can I just, sorry, Chair, if I could just come back on that external finishes one. It does feel to me that, you know, lodges have a finite life, whereas planning applications have a long-term life. So it does feel to me that external finishes on a site that is like that do become a matter for consideration for the lodges as well, but that's my perspective. Thanks, Sarah.
I had noted, Sarah, that you've suggested in your presentation an additional condition in which the colour of the lodges would be maintained in perpetuity. So, Rosie, does that suit your? It might not actually impact the materials, but it would make sure that the colour of the lodges were maintained in this low.
Yeah, that's certainly helpful. I just again, I think we really need to be seen to be encouraging sustainable materials as well, and it just feels to me something we ought to be constantly grinding at.
As Sarah says, the difficulty being that these very often are effectively flat pack. Well, they're not. They come packed already made, don't they? So
yeah, but with a finite life. But with a finite life, so things change.
Indeed, and the colour would need to be maintained with an additional condition. Sarah, will you just consider that while we're going through the rest of the discussion on this, about whether materials need to be included as well as colour on your additional condition? Any other questions?
And can you just pick up on the dark skies point?
Yes, I think the lighting condition is there. We do have sort of a policy already in the plan, but we could refer to dark skies as part of the reason for that. I think
it's just helpful. Again, it's giving it airtime. It's highly relevant in that sort of coastal location. Thank you.
Okay, members, no other points of clarification. Thank you, Sarah. It's a really
sorry, Madeleine, I did have my hand up.
Sorry, Simon, I didn't see that at all. Yes, I did. So I wasn't ignoring you, Simon. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for such a comprehensive presentation, which is what we come to expect from you. I just wanted to ask you a procedural question. Normally, when we get statutory consultees making responses to applications, sometimes they, you know, sort of bit on the live a bit sort of non-committal, but I don't remember seeing something quite so sort of forthright from Natural Resources Wales as their response to this one. And I just wondered, I mean, if the Park Authority was minded to follow officer's recommendation and approve this, I mean, how is that procedurally acceptable, given that we've got a strong objection from Natural Resources Wales, whose primary concern, I suppose, is the fact that this development is going to use 2 hectares of greenfield land?
Yeah, so under our scheme of delegation, where we have a statutory consultee objecting and we are going against that, it has to come to committee. But we had already scheduled this committee in any case, because we recognised that it was a departure from the plan, and we had advertised it as such. There's no further procedural requirement on us in terms of notification. Obviously, it is not a comfortable thing to go against the recommendations of the statutory nature body for Wales. We're not suggesting that lightly, but having looked very carefully at this site as a whole and weighed up other material considerations that NRW won't necessarily bring into account, such as you know, the previously developed land, such as the community benefits, we felt that the amended scheme, which reduced the amount of greenfield land take and significantly upped the landscaping proposed, could be supported. So as part of our decision making, we worked with our policy officer, who has been trained in landscape as well, in coming to that view.
Happy with that, Simon?
Yeah, because when we had the Natural Resources Wales, you kindly shared the narrative of what they said. You counted then with the applicant's landscape specialist, but you didn't give an officer. You didn't give an officer response to each of those points, which I thought was interesting. Obviously, our main function is to protect the landscape, isn't it? I mean, no one doubts the community benefits or economic benefits of this, but I just think that when you go against statutory consultees, then it makes me a little uneasy. Thank you.
So, yeah, just in terms of that, the officer view is that we do think that the landscape visual impact assessment is generally sufficient to allow us to make a decision. We recognise some of the issues highlighted by NRW in terms of viewpoints 8 and 9, but we don't think that is fundamental in terms of impacting our understanding of this proposal and this scheme. And we do recognise that there will be an increase in the visual intrusion in the landscape from those two viewpoints, but that will be mitigated by landscaping. And it is, it is a matter of balancing as part of this decision making for members. As I think I sort of highlighted in the presentation, we also recognise that there will be an enhancement from certain viewpoints, particularly those directly across from the site, which is not in a good state of repair at present.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, Simon. I hope that's all right. Caroline, you've got your hand up. I hope it wasn't to say that we stopped.
No,
Right.
my hand up, Chair, was really because the monitoring officer drew members' attention a little while back after the last committee meeting to the fact that if a declaration of interest is made at the beginning of the meeting, it should also be made at the point of the application being considered. So as a general reminder to the following item as well, when a couple of members have made a declaration of interest, but in relation to the general declaration that was made in regard to county councillors, it's just to highlight that generally, because the county councillors, the applicant was known to the county councillors, just to highlight that declaration once again, just before the application was considered.
Caroline, thank you very much. I should have done that, having reported that at the start of the meeting, but we'll certainly note that in the minutes, or you will certainly note that, and indeed we'll ensure that the declarations for the next one are clear before our consideration. Thank you, Caroline, very much. Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, just to thank Caroline for just alerting members to that point, which I made some time ago now. Thank you.
Indeed, it's an important one as well, just to remind viewers particularly, I think, and those joining the meeting, that where there have been interests declared. Dr. Plummer. Rosie?
Sorry, Chair, just one point I forgot to raise, and I didn't put in my note to Sarah either. What is the quality of the agricultural land we're losing, and should that be a consideration? Just to flag. Thank you.
We have had information on the agricultural land submitted as part of the evidence base, and it's not best and most versatile.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and useful question, Rosie, as this has come up with a number of other applications of late. Members, I'm intending to move on to the speakers. As I said at the beginning, we have 3 speakers to this application, and we'll start with David Smith, please. David, I've seen that you're with us. Just let's check that we
can you hear me, Chair?
We can indeed. Thank you very much indeed. You're very welcome, Croeso, and you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Over the last dozen years or so, the former motel at Roachgate has disgraced our village with its ghastly rundown and decaying buildings, and being located at the entrance to Pembrokeshire Coast National Park, it doesn't create a very good first impression for visitors to our magnificent coastal location. I'm David Smith, and as the former chairman of the Community Council, former chairman of the Village Hall Committee, and current chairman of Knowlton and Roach Community Land Trust, I'm in reasonably good touch with people's views. Nevertheless, I imagine that the Planning Committee would prefer a more quantitative assessment of local opinion. So in anticipation of today's meeting, I undertook an ad hoc survey of local residents. On Saturday, I posted a request on the village WhatsApp group asking whether people support Mr. Neumann's proposed development of the old motel site. I posted at 7 AM and by 8 AM I'd had 35 positive responses. By last night, I'd received the names of 129 respondents, all very supportive. Indeed, I would say that people are really enthusiastic to see the new development realised. I should add too that there are only 90 subscribers to the village WhatsApp group. So my survey was hardly comprehensive, and no doubt many more people would have supported the development had I been able to reach them. There have been two previous proposals to develop the motel site. One was for a rather ugly replacement motel. The other was for an ill-conceived housing development. Both obtained planning permission, but both were subsequently abandoned for commercial reasons. In truth, although local people were keen to see the motel eyesore removed, neither development would have done much for the well-being of village residents. In contrast, the new scheme is an entirely different concept, and it is being proposed by the local landowner who is committed to the well-being of our community. He grew up in the village and is highly respected for the professional way in which he goes about things. Having lost our village shop and post office a few years ago, partly due to the post office scandal, compounded by the COVID emergency, villagers are delighted to see a proposal for both to be reinstated. The shop and post office alone will be a boon to the village, but adding a bistro, cafe and other facilities will provide locals with somewhere to meet and chat whilst sharing a coffee and collecting provisions. It will also provide considerable local employment, something that is much needed in our area. In summary, the new development that is proposed to replace the Roachgate Motel will significantly enhance the convenience and well-being of local residents by providing a shop, post office, cafe and meeting rooms. It will attract visitors to the village who will no doubt spend money in the local pubs, restaurants and recreation facilities. Importantly, it will create many new jobs for local people, and it will replace a decaying eyesore that is a blight on our community. Crucially, the proposal is overwhelmingly supported by local residents. We all sincerely hope that this committee will give approval to the exemplary proposal before you. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was a very clear presentation. Members, any questions or a clarification? Mr. Smith? No. Thank you, David. Much appreciated. Our second speaker is Mr. Michael Harries. Michael, you're very welcome. I hope that you're here and we can hear you. Would you want to try
the microphone? Take it off mute.
Perfect. It's worked well. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, councillors, committee members and officers for the chance to speak here this morning on behalf of Knowlton and Roche Community Council and provide us with an opportunity to offer our full support and backing for the proposed application in Roche known as the Gate Development. My name, as you've heard, is Michael Harris and I'm the current chairman of Knowlton and Roche Community Council. Now, since the closure of Roachgate Motel back in 2008, we as a community have been tarnished by the current site, which I'm sure you're all aware of as the pink monstrosity and eyesore as you enter our village, and of course the picturesque National Park. And I have to say it is baffling and frustrating how the NRW cannot see the benefits of developing this current blot on the landscape, particularly having seen the viewpoint angles today and the significant benefits the new development will offer. For years now, we have fallen on false hope of previous successful planning applications. As Mr. Smith has mentioned, neither of these previous applications came to fruition. And whilst those applications of a motel or housing would have brought variable benefits, the new plans of the Gate development will not only be a significant visual improvement on the entrance roach, but also provide a central point for the community. Whilst Roche does benefit from a school, a pub, a hall, and of course a castle, we lack the community facility of a shop and cafe. And with these additions from the gate development, as a community council and residents within the parish believe the gate will become the new daily hub for locals and visitors to the area. It will bring much needed resources to the local community, such as shop to those householders who struggle to travel to Haverfordwest, a cafe to meet and greet friends and family that we have missed since the facilities closed at Hilton Court. And with future plans of the post office and a pharmacy collection point, bringing back to Roach, it will only offer further benefits to the community. We as community councillors, we have taken a keen interest in this development, as I'm sure you're aware of, and have supported this project from the outset and have an understanding of the numerous amendments to the plans. But we are delighted to be here today with it now receiving officer recommendation to approve the planning. We would like to thank the applicant, Nick Neumann, for persevering, as he has spent a great deal of time and effort and money to bring this project to the committee today, and it's no doubt been a long 2.5 years to get to this point since purchasing the site. And in truth, it's been a long time for us residents, as we are all keen and excited to see this project progress. This is evident, as Mr. Smith has already highlighted, with the ad hoc survey undertaken. And I believe these numbers are matched by the high volumes of letters received by Pembrokeshire Coast National Park in relation to the support for the project when out for consultation. We as local councillors and representatives of the community, we're extremely confident of the work and plans Nick has presented. We are already grateful for the work he does within the community as means of cutting the grass to improve the visual look as you enter the village, and cannot wait to have the gate development added to this view. I ask you, the members of Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Development Control Committee, to fully support this project, to not only allow Nick to continue the hard work of improving the infrastructure in our village and St David's Peninsula, but allow us as residents to be proud of this wonderful new development, and that will provide visual, economic, biodiversity and social benefits to us and our neighbouring communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Again, very clear and very passionate exposition there. Much appreciated. Members, any questions for Mr. Harris? Very clear presentations, both so far. Thank you very much indeed. We'll move on to our third speaker, is the applicant, Nick Neumann. Sorry, Nick. Can just check that we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you very much. You're very welcome, Croeso, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
So I got Borodar, so I'm going to have to change that to Pranawdar now. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members, officers. Thank you for affording me this opportunity to speak. For the avoidance of any doubt, I address you today as Nick Neumann, the applicant, business owner, Pembrokeshire farmer. The former Roachgate Motel, located at the gateway to the St David's Peninsula, is somewhat famous for the wrong reasons, as it remains one of the last true blots on our county's landscape. Namely, the Pink Palace has remained dormant for nearly 20 years, slowly deteriorating in condition, whilst various proposals have come forward but not materialised. The site, originally a former World War II radar station, became a commercial premises including motel, restaurant, spa and events facility in the early 1960s, and was a much loved popular venue for nearly 50 years before closing its doors in 2008. Today we still receive comments from people who loved the motel back in the day, and I myself can fondly remember visits with my late parents there. And I wouldn't mind betting that at least one person on this call and meeting here today has memories of a visit to the motel. It was an institution back then, and with your approval, members, will become once again. Over the last 2 years, we've been working with your officers to form a proposal that both complements policy and presents a viable scheme for us as a developer. And I'd like to take this opportunity and ask that it be minuted to offer my thanks to officers for their tenacity and steadfast support throughout the process, which has been particularly lengthy given the significant amount of survey and supporting information required. But I am now also delighted that we have a scheme that officers feel they're able to support to you, the committee. The scheme, aptly named The Gate, the gateway to the St David's Peninsula, will include the reinstatement of a bistro-style restaurant, a village shop, which has been lost from our community within the last 2 years, an event space and a modest tourism development, all just a stone's throw from Newgale Sands and 6 miles from our county town. The proposal will bring a significant multi-million-pound investment to the community, create 18 full-time jobs and restore lost community provisions. And we'll see the revitalisation of the brownfield site with a new exciting provision to our growing community here in Roach. We have carried out a thorough pre-application consultation and inclusive community engagement events to get everybody's feedback on a scheme that works and delivers for all. The strength of support and positive sentiment from the community has been overwhelming for the plans, which can be evidenced in the volume of the positive representation made to this authority, which I believe is in the order of 116 letters of support. The proposal includes a comprehensive green infrastructure statement and notable landscaping plans to offset the impacts of the development. The scheme includes converting productive pasture into wildlife meadows and planting of a woodland belt that surrounds the whole site, which over time will mitigate the visual impact on the landscape. Furthermore, the site is strategically located on the gateway to the St David's Peninsula, having a good public transport connections, including T11 bus service. And from an active travel perspective, established cycle routes, the Haven Trail, and public rights of way to the coast. As per PCC Highways recommendations, a new access point will be established and a new pedestrian crossing to allow safe passage to the village. We have as possible adapted design elements of the hub building to better reflect the Pembrokeshire vernacular, with the use of both traditional and contemporary building techniques and materials, and the proposal will deliver a vibrant, attractive addition to the street scene of Roach, which we feel will add to the quality of the National Park. We have in principle funding agreed by the Development Bank of Wales and in principle grant funding agreed by Visit Wales. Our intention would be to start the development as soon as conditions were discharged, with a fully committed phasing plan in place, commencing with the demolition of all existing buildings and the planting of new landscaping firstly. Furthermore, we have reviewed and carefully considered all attached conditions of approval by officers and fully support proposed conditions and their implementation going forward. Members, in summing up, I respectfully ask you to consider the positive social and economic merits of the proposal in front of you today. And
the timer is sounding, sorry.
I urge you to vote in favour of the officer's recommendation of approval. I'd be delighted now to take any questions that members or officers may have. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Nick. Much appreciated. Again, another clear presentation there, very helpful. We've got a couple of questions come in. Rosie, Dr. Plummer.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It's clearly laudable, the effort that you've gone to involve and engage the community and to address all the issues. And thank you for applauding our planning officers who we all think do a particularly good job. And we know this is a tricky and a prominent site. And yes, indeed, I've known it for more decades than I dare tell you. In all sorts of ways. Just a simple question, please, Nick, and that was about the community store. I wasn't quite sure whether you had envisaged that as community owned or partly participated in by the community or simply as a commercial option. And I ask that because of very close involvement with a community shop and community run shop and post office. So I'm very conscious of sort of viability issues. So I'm just interested in your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Plummer, for the question. So it's quite simple. It would be a commercial enterprise. We would manage that in-house. But particularly with the shop, it would be a farm shop which would celebrate and promote the local produce that we have here within Pembrokeshire. So whilst it would be a commercial entity that we would run, it wouldn't be a Nissa mini mart. It would be a local farm shop with local produce. I'd love to get say, a local butcher in there, so we have some local meats. That type of farm shop style is what we endeavour and what our vision is. Also, Dr. Plummer, with your previous question around the village shop that we've now lost, it was unfortunate that it was Tim, who I went to school with, actually the owner, was caught up in the Horizon scandal. It affected him, his mental health, etc., and he hasn't run the shop to its full capacity. His 80-year-old mum was running it because he wasn't allowed to at the time, and the shop declined and it declined, and people didn't use it, and it forced them to close the doors, unfortunately. There are really great examples of village shops like Bayview Stores in Solva, a fantastic little shop and very, very successful. So viability, I just think it will work. It will work, and it's exciting. Thank you.
Certainly wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. And Gwyn Aneth Jones, please. Gwyn.
And I'm muted, I think.
No, we can hear you. Or we could hear you. If you try unmuting again, please. Try now, Gwyn.
Bore can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I am.
I'm so sorry about that.
No problem.
If I can ask Nick a question about one very small point, it seems that we've got the officials' appraisal of the project, and about 20 points there. The small point that I want to refer to is halfway down. It talks about WC provision and changing areas. I just wanted to know what you envisage there. Will it be, in fact, be something available to the general public or only to customers? Or how would you rate the provisions? You know, is it going to be open from 8:30 AM till the time of, I think, was it 10 o'clock at night when the bistro closes? So, you know, the provision of public toilets is a major issue in many places, and I was wondering how you would address that. Thank you.
Gwyn. So essentially the toilet facility, changing facilities, would be for the patrons or the users of the facility. I wasn't foreseeing that they would be publicly open, but then that said, it's something that we could consider. But my initial thoughts were that it would just be for the users or the patrons of the facilities.
Thank you. It's not a material thing. I'm very supportive of the whole scheme. And in fact, I remembered many years of driving past a place which seemed quite new when I was a young man, and became, as you say, an eyesore later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gwyn. Thank you, Nick. And Councillor Evans, Tim.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Nick. And yeah, from a person that used to go to the Roachgate Motel many years ago, it is absolutely fantastic to see the job that you're hopefully going to do on this site. Can I just ask the post office? Is the post office going to be? Is it a given on the site, or is that something you'll have to apply for to the post office?
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, good question. So I've already started having those conversations some time ago. When I started those conversations, there was a reluctance, should I say, from the post office to commit to another site in the locality. And that was a conversation I had at the same time as they essentially closed the shop here in Roach, because I looked at an option to personally see whether we could then accommodate it here on the farm with us, but obviously planning issues and etc. we weren't able to do that. I think they are open to new locations, but it's not going to be as it used to be in terms of a 5-day week. You know, look at the Wolf Inn in Wolf's Castle as an example. I think they do, don't they, a Friday morning where somebody comes in and they do that. I will certainly continue those conversations, and we are continuing those conversations with Post Office to try to get as much provision in terms of post office as we can. But as I said, it's not, I doubt whether it's going to be a 5-day provision.
No, well, that's great. It's just, it's good to know, because like the post office is the heart of the village these days.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I'm lucky I've got a post office close to me, and the amount of people that use post offices now, and, you know, rejuvenating the village and stuff, the post office is really important. So, yeah, I wish you luck on that.
I think it's a good question, Tim, as well, because, you know, we're losing branches, bank branches, aren't we, around the towns. You know, if it weren't for the post office, a lot of people like myself, we couldn't bank, you know, or we'd have to go to Carmarthen to bank. So it's a good question.
Yeah, good luck on that. Cheers.
Thank you very much. I think, members, that's all the questions. So thank you to all of our speakers, been very helpful. And members, we need to move on to debate now. And Councillor Hancock, Simon.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm really pleased that the concerns that I had following the Natural Resources Wales objection, they've been fully answered, and I'm delighted to see the huge commercial, the community and economic benefit and biodiversity gain as well from this really well worked application. So I'm really delighted to move the officer's recommendation of approval for this application.
Thank you, Simon, very helpful. Sam.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I would like to second the proposal, please. Can I just say, first of all, to Nick, looking at all the work that has gone into this, I myself have gone past there on many occasions on our travels a few times a year to St David's, and it's always been a hot topic of discussion. I think going forward, one of the issues that I was looking at was to do with the road and the traffic, which of course has been ticked off with the pedestrian crossing and so on, which is fantastic for safety reasons, obviously. I think in the current climate as well, you are to be commended to want to take on the post office scheme as well, because as we've all said before, the post office is so important to our communities. I'm very lucky here in Tenby because we have a fantastic post office facility, but this is all about a community hub as well within this, which is very important in keeping with the lovely place of Roach. And I think people have backed you so much because they know it's something important for the future. Jobs as well, very crucial to where we live within the national park. And all in all, I think, you know, it's a fantastic way forward, and I'm very excited to see the end product. So very well done, and I'd like to second that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. So we have a proposer and a seconder. We've still got a couple of speakers want to come in. Sarah, you've raised your hand. Do you want to?
I just wanted to ask for clarification that the proposers and the seconders were doing so with an amendment to condition 21 on the hours of operation to allow opening times until midnight on a weekday for the bistro. And I believe Kate is just sharing an additional condition on the colour and materials for the lodges. And I also have a note around an amendment to condition 9 for the reasoning to refer to dark skies. So just wanted to clarify that those were also included in the recommendation.
Excellent, Sarah, you're doing my job for me. So yes, the condition 21 change to add the two extra hours all the way through to midnight. The additional condition, colour to be maintained in perpetuity, which you can see up there, colour and materials of the lodges, and reference to dark skies being made in condition 9. So Simon and Sam, can you just confirm that you're happy with those?
Yes, Chair.
Can I confirm that I'm happy that my proposal of recommendation of approval for this application reflects those amendments to those conditions?
Thank you very much, Simon. And Sam, I believe you said yes as well.
I echo Simon's.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for just ensuring that we've got the proper proposed motion proposed and second properly. Councillor Williams, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to fully support this application. I think everyone's touched on some very positive comments, and it's great that the community are fully behind Mr. Newman on this. Obviously, he's done a lot of work engaging with the community, and I can't believe that it's been so long that you know, I remember driving past on many occasions down to go to St David's with the rugby club, and it has been an eyesore. But I'm absolutely delighted that something's good going to come out of this, and I strongly welcome this application. Well done.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, indeed, the comment was made about the fact that there have been 2 previous permissions granted, but they didn't advance, and we're looking now to a different proposal here, which perhaps has more of a chance of advancing with the support that's talked about. Councillor James, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. I'm make no apology in repeating what people have said already, that it'll be a fantastic asset. There's no doubt about that. I got one concern, but I'm happy that officers have dealt with it, and that is the crossing on the road. It's quite a fast, well-used road. I'm happy with the way that officers have dealt with it, with highways within PCC. It's just my concern in the back of my mind is with the speed of the traffic there, but that's just my personal view. The post office, yes, people have said it's a good asset. It's a facility for the elderly to go and get a pension. It's you know, it's something like that is so useful to every part of the community, not just the village but the surrounding area as well. I'll turn to the Welsh language. I hope that Nick, you will use the Welsh language as much as you can, please. As you know, I'm a huge sponsor of the Welsh language, as everybody knows, and that would be very, very much appreciated if popeth yn cael ei siario yn Gymraeg ac yn Saesneg, to share it all in English and Welsh. Diolch yn fawr iawn a pob lwc. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We're very fortunate that Tony Macy from Highways has joined the meeting to be on hand if there were any concerns expressed or any questions to Tony. I don't know whether you want to make any comment. I think that Sarah has clearly covered the issues, but you're very welcome to comment if you feel that would be helpful.
Thank you very much. I would just add that yes, Sarah has obviously covered this aspect in detail in her report. If we had issues with regards to the speeds in the area, this would be something that we would have raised in our recommendation. Having looked at the accident statistics, there's only one slight accident, but there's sufficient forward visibility for drivers already on the carriageway to be able to see pedestrians, and because there is a safe refuge in the middle, both directions of them are mitigated. Obviously, we would expect drivers to behave in accordance with the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit that's in that area, so we don't anticipate that there would be any increased risk to any of the users by putting in the pedestrian refuges and putting in a crossing in that particular location. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and your presence is really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Price.
I'll keep this short, but as a member who passes goes through Roach probably more than any other member here, I am so fully supportive of this application. I'm really excited, and all of the peninsula of St David, everybody, we're so excited. So I'm fully supportive of this, and well done, Nick.
Diolch, thank you very much. Members, any other comments or points that you wish to raise? Caroline, are we all right to carry on? You've got your book highlighted, but I think not. Oh, Claire, Councillor George.
Only thinking, Madam, whether we should declare our personal interests as a county councillor and being known to the applicant at this point before we vote.
I think that's been covered both at the start and in Caroline's very helpful interjection earlier on to remind members that the applicant is known to the council members. Mike, I think Michael Kent, I think you were happy that we took that approach.
Yes, I think that's correct. I think we've raised it. I don't think it needs to be raised again.
No, but reminding us just before we vote, Claire, is very helpful. Thank you very
just
much.
Just to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, members, I have a proposer in Simon Hancock and a seconder in Sam Skirback-Hall for the proposal to go with officer recommendation, and that's with an additional condition 25, a change to condition 21, and a slight amendment to condition 9, which you have heard, and the proposers and seconder agree. I'll ask for to see your hands, please. Thank you very much, members. That's 15-4. Have we got any against? No, and any abstentions? No, that's fine. That's carried then. Thank you, members, very much. We'll move on now to our final application today, MP 25-0079 full. This is reconstruction of shed adjacent to the chapel and construction of a ramp within the cemetery at Pisgah Baptist Chapel, Creswell Quay. We had two declarations of interest to this. I believe Vanessa is going to step out of the meeting now. And I think if we need any other members to declare, they will do. Mike.
Thank you very much. It's maybe some advice, please. I'm a deacon in my local Baptist chapel. I don't know of this chapel, but I just wanted some advice, as I am a deacon, whether I should declare interest or not. Thank you.
I think that would be a fairly distant interest there. Mike will just confirm.
Yes,
that.
I think it's a rather tenuous connection, but at the very most it would be a personal interest. It's a matter for you whether you declare it or not.
Probably no need, Mike, but entirely up to you. I'll just remind anybody watching and members that we all fill in a form if we do make a declaration, and that's recorded by the monitoring officer. So entirely up to you, Mike, but your advice is that it's a rather tenuous. This has been brought to committee as it involves a member of staff, so it's due to the delegation scheme, and I'm not sure whether we have Mike Higgins back with us. I know he's doing a test now. It's Kate who is going to present this item. So Kate Outtrell, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Is my slideshow showing?
It is, but not full screen.
Not in full screen, right?
Side, yeah.
Okay, so if I go, there we are.
Perfect.
Right, lovely. Okay, I'm presenting this on behalf of Mike because he's doing a minibus driving test this afternoon. So it's Pisgah Baptist Chapel. It's being brought to members because the applicant is a member of the authority. So in accord with our scheme of delegation, it has to come before committee. It's for a relatively small scheme. It's for the rebuilding of a small shed against the side of the chapel, and also a ramp to link the new area of graveyard to the old area of graveyard. So the only concerns that the officer who wrote the report had were in regard to the tree protection zones, the root protection zones for the trees potentially being impacted. So a further tree assessment has been required by way of a condition which is found at the end of your report. The location of the newest conservation area is outlined here in green, so you can see that the boundary of the chapel is also the boundary of our newest conservation area. This is a view of the chapel from the cemetery, from the new cemetery, and you can't see on this side where the shed is going to be, but you can see how there is a difference in levels between the old cemetery and the new, and why there is this need for a ramp. So on the bottom right of this photo, you can see the old shed, which is said to be in a state of dilapidation and is not fit for purpose for keeping the mowing machinery that the congregation require to be kept there. Just a couple of shots to show it in its context. And then we've got the cross sections showing the ramp going up between the two areas of the graveyard. This has been assessed as not having a significant impact on the character of the conservation area, but is also required in order to ensure that access under the Equalities Act is maintained for all the members of the congregation there, and that it will not, although it's quite a utilitarian ramp with a galvanised steel handrail, that it won't have a negative impact on the newly designated conservation area. This is the elevations of the new shed against the side of the chapel, so a simple lean-to structure with a corrugated tin roof, very much in character with the building. And that is probably the shortest presentation I've ever given members, so thank you very much. If you have any questions, hopefully I'll be able to answer them. The recommendation is to approve.
Thank you, Kate. Any questions, points of clarification? Very interesting that having just designated the conservation area, we have an application here, showing the importance of our attention to these very special areas. Rosie, Dr. Plummer.
I was going to follow Kate by completing the shortness of the item and happily recommending it for approval.
Thank you, Rosie. Proposed there. Councillor James, Mike.
Yes, please. I'd like to second that. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very much. So, members, I'm not seeing any other questions or points of discussion, so we'll go straight to the vote on this. We've had a proposer, Dr. Plummer, and a seconder, Councillor James, to go with officer recommendation of approval. Can we show hands, please? Thank you very much, members. Have we any against? And any abstentions? No, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Raise my hand again now rather than taking it down. So that concludes our consideration of applications today. We'll just move on now to consider the report of the Development Management Manager on appeals. Kate, please.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, it's gone from the beginning. Sorry, members. I thought I had it already. Again, another short presentation. I've also got to apologise on the papers before you. There should have been a second appeal document for a property called Westfields, which wasn't circulated, but I've sent that on to all the members so that you can have a look at that after this meeting. And if you have any questions, I can do a brief presentation on that going forward. I thought I would just do a really quick summary of the one that is attached to your papers, which is for 15 Scandinavia Heights. This is the view of the site. So we're in a really urban location within Saundersfoot. The applicants had come to us and asked us for pre-application advice before they put the application in. We had indicated that we thought the scheme was not supportable. A different scheme was submitted. Subsequently, after the first scheme was submitted and refused, I should say, a second scheme was then submitted, which went to appeal. Just for your information, this is the house on the left, is the raised roof and the glazing on the frontage, which if you look at this, if you go back to the street scene, you can see it's going to significantly raise the height of the end house, and the officer felt that this was not in accord with the character of the street scene. Sometimes applications like this for officers are really hard in terms of design because the special qualities of the park are sometimes hard to capture within an urban street scene, and it's something that it takes a long time, I think, for officers to be able to articulate what is wrong with a particular design. And in this case, the planning inspector agreed that it would have been a discordant feature within the street scene and that it would cause harm to special qualities of the wider national park. So it's a good result, and points to Bethan Gledhill, our planning officer, who determined this. A really good decision, and a good decision from the planning inspector. So thank you, members. That's my presentation on appeals concluded.
Thank you, Kate. Yes, much appreciated, and it's always very helpful when to read the reports. It pulls out the points that the inspectors make, and yes, well done to Bethan for the amount of work that she put into that, and pleasing to have it supported by the inspector. Members, that concludes our business for today. Just before we finish and close the meeting, I would just like to thank two members who will be leaving us, and it's their last meeting today. Rachel unfortunately couldn't be present, but Julie James is here. You've both been sterling members of this committee for the past 8 years. Your input's been really much appreciated, so we will miss you, but thank you very much for all your input to the workings of this committee and indeed the park over the past few years. So members, thank you very much indeed. I'll close the meeting now. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you for your attendance and your contributions. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Thank you. Bye.
Good luck, Julie.
Bye, Julie.